Sponsored by Freepik. This is not the world's first foldable with two hinges. Huawei beat everyone to the punch a year ago with the Mate XT Ultimate, which I reviewed last November. But this is the first smartphone of its kind that truly might matter outside of China. I'm Mr. Mobile. I've carried foldables exclusively for the past 5 years, and I've just spent an hour with Samsung's Galaxy Z TriFold ahead of its 2026 US release. Even after just an hour, I can already tell that this is one of those rare moments when a product stretches its category enough to bring something truly new to the table. Sure, foldables have been able to morph from phone to small tablet for the past 5 years, but this can transform on demand into a 10-inch widescreen. I've said before that foldables feel like the modern version of the old Pocket PC category, but the TriFold takes that to a new level, not just because of the size, but thanks to the software. Like many Galaxy phones, you can connect this one to a screen and enjoy a limited PC experience using Samsung DeX. But unlike any other phone, TriFold can also run DeX locally. So that 10-inch monitor you're carrying in your pocket becomes its own mini workstation. You're not just navigating Android with a keyboard and mouse, you're able to approximate a workflow much closer to that of a real computer, complete with apps running in Windows. I've been trying to make the 4-pocket laptop a thing since the Galaxy Fold 3, so this is the feature I'm most looking forward to stress testing when my retail unit arrives in a few days. But when it's not deployed in DeX mode, this thing's got to be a total brick, right?
It is a Chonkster in the hand.
Well, yes and no. At 309 grams, TriFold is 32% more massive than the iPhone 17 Pro Max. And at nearly 13 millimeters, it sometimes feels like you're holding an ice cream sandwich. But that's still thinner than the Motorola Razr Ultra, and considering all the display Samsung managed to wedge in here, it's kind of surprising it's as thin as it is. That engineering is never far from your mind when you're using the TriFold, and overall, it does feel like a bit of a science fair project. Not that it feels chintzy or poorly built. It's almost like its potential seems wasted whenever you're not using its inner screen. TriFold shares a lot of components with its sibling, the Galaxy Fold 7. Same cameras and lenses, same hinge design, and the same cover display. That 6.5-inch panel feels a lot less proportional on the TriFold due to its added thickness. So in my first hour, I was always finding excuses to open it. When I did, it was sometimes clunky in the hand, but overall not as hard to hold as I feared, maybe thanks to its roughly 4mm thickness. It's very thin. And I think a lot of people forget that you can also use the phone in portrait mode when it's open, making it feel more like a magazine than a wide restaurant menu or something. If you're distracted by the crease on standard foldables, then of course you'll be twice as distracted here. But as I've said many times, you don't actually notice them when using the device. The bigger adjustment is remembering that you can only fold the phone in one specific sequence, left panel, then right. Trying to go the opposite direction will immediately prompt a warning message and a strong vibration, which buzzes more insistently the further you fold.
Very angry haptic buzz. Well, what if I keep going? What if I push the... Oh yeah, it's continuously vibrating. You cannot get this wrong even if you try.
It's clever. And so is the sort of underbite to the phone's cross-section, which makes it easier to open when it's time to go big again. That folding mechanism is the biggest difference between the Samsung TriFold and its Huawei competition, a difference that packs both a pronounced advantage and a substantial sacrifice. Little peek behind the curtain, folks. The TriFold that's in the mail to me now cost me nearly $5,000 to import, so I could cover it as fast as possible. So before I continue the comparison to the competition, please stick with me for a quick sponsored message. You may not know it, but you've already seen stuff on Mr. Mobile from my sponsor. When I talked about a wintry December in my latest Kindle review, New York hadn't actually gotten any snow yet, so I relied on stock footage from Freepik to set the scene. And before you say it, nope, this isn't AI generated. I know that because Freepik gives you the option to exclude AI from search results. Video, photo, even sound effects. The stock media that's elevated this video is all from Freepik. Of course, it's not just a footage library, and the generative features that are here aren't just good for the usual parlor tricks. I'm talking practical stuff, like when I forget to take both landscape and portrait photos of a product. Now, I can use Freepik to reframe those photos for me. And all those 20-year-old photos I use in my throwback videos, Freepik lets me upscale them now to eke out just a little more detail from decades past. I'm never going to use this stuff to replace the human artists I employ, but for the little details that matter to me, it's really useful. With a collaborative virtual workspace and even a full video editor for big projects, Freepik is one of those platforms I'm going to keep using even after the sponsored period ends. If you want to join me, hit the link in the description. And thanks to Freepik for sponsoring this video. The benefit to Samsung's all-in approach to folding is obvious. Despite the reinforced display overcoat that's debuting on TriFold and the same IP48 rating of its recent siblings, the fact remains that the inner screen is much softer and more damage-prone than a conventional panel. And replacing that screen could cost even more than a mid-range phone these days. So folding both leaves inward is the best way to ensure that that screen stays safe when it's not in use. Unfortunately, it also eliminates one of the biggest advantages of the foldable category: versatility. On the XT Ultimate, Huawei preserves the flexibility of the form factor by implementing hinges that fold in opposite directions. And that gives you 3 phones in one: a 6.4-inch handheld, a 10.2-inch tablet, and a 7.9-inch in-betweener. I found the ability to use all 3 sizes very useful during my time with the Huawei, and I already know I'm going to miss that middle ground option when I move into the Samsung. But I was never comfortable with how exposed the Huawei screen felt, or the awkward carrying case I had to use to protect it. So it's possible this will turn out to be a draw. Less important, but still worth a mention, I'm not as enthused about the aesthetics of the TriFold as I was about Samsung's summer releases. While Fold 7 and Flip 7 brought exciting colors to go with their impressive dimensional diminutions, TriFold comes only in a ceramic glass fiber-reinforced polymer done up in striped black and gray, with a glossy overcoat that loves itself some fingerprints. While there is a case included in the box, it's sadly not the one that offers a kickstand. Samsung will sell that one separately, which feels like a needless bit of margin padding on a phone that costs the equivalent of $2,400, before the scalper or eBay premium some of us had to pay. But to be frank, that's lower than the $3,000 I fully expected this thing to debut at, and reports indicate that's no accident, with a Samsung VP saying it achieved that price by cutting everything possible. In addition to the anemic inbox accessories, that might explain the use of an older processor and the recycling of components from Fold 7, though Samsung tells me that the longer development time for this phone also played a part. I'm coming away from my first hour with the TriFold thinking a lot about the first Galaxy Fold from 2020. Like that trailblazer, the TriFold seems more like the prototype for a potential future than that future itself. But despite its many compromises, that first Fold cemented itself as the core of my everyday carry, where it and its successors would remain for the next 5 years. So I'm eager to see if the TriFold, with its new faux computer capabilities, will deliver a similar surprise in this latest era of what we used to call the Pocket PC. Folks, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Mr. Mobile so you don't miss my continuing coverage of this device and category. This video was produced following 1 hour with Galaxy TriFold review samples at a media opportunity offered by Samsung in New York City. However, Samsung had no editorial input or copy approval rights concerning this content, and it paid nothing in exchange for its production. It also didn't receive an early preview of same. My own TriFold retail unit should arrive shortly, and I'll be sharing my early thoughts on Threads at the handle Captain2Phones, en route to a full review here. Finally, in the meantime, check out my Mate XT Ultimate review to see how Huawei solved the same problems differently. Till next time, from Michael Fisher, thanks for watching. And stay mobile, my friends.